Hi, I'm Yvette Taylor, and today we're here at the beautiful Euro Stoves in Beverly, Mass, and we're going to make a maple-glazed cider brine turkey. Very fall-like ingredients, great for Thanksgiving. Everyone is always interested in making a very moist and delicious turkey for Thanksgiving. So today we're going to go over a couple of techniques and simple steps that you can do to achieve that. The ratio is 1 cup of salt to a gallon of liquid. Now that 1 gallon of liquid can be made up of basically anything. Today we're going to use cider, we're going to use vegetable broth, we're going to use beer. You can use wine, you can use juice, you can use vinegars, you can use anything. The second component of that brine is going to be a gallon of ice cold water. Now that component doesn't change. So the first component that you're going to mix your salt with can be anything. So we're going to start with 1 cup of salt. So this is a very simple step, and you want to do this probably a day ahead or even a couple days ahead before you're going to be brining your meat. Now, while we're doing this, let's talk about the type of meat that you can brine. You can brine any sort of lean meat. It can be turkey, it can be chicken, it can be pork, and it can even be fish. You don't want to brine any sort of meat that's very fatty, like a stew beef or anything like that. You want to brine lean meat. So basically here I'm making up this gallon of liquid. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring it just to a boil. And once all of the ingredients are in, you just want to dissolve the sugar. And then you want to infuse the flavors together. So that's the important part. You don't want to bring it to a boil and overboil it. You don't want to caramelize the sugars. You really just want to infuse everything. Ground ginger, garam masala, peppercorns, whole cloves, cinnamon sticks. Now here I'm going to show you how to scrape out the center of a vanilla bean. I've taken a whole vanilla bean here and I've simply sliced down the center. And what we want to do is we want to get all of the bean from the inside into the pot. And then we're going to put the whole bean in there as well. So basically you're going to hold your knife and you're just going to very gently scrape down the bean, and you get all this goodness from the inside. You're going to put that right in there, and then in goes the whole bean. And this goes on the stove, and as I said, you bring it just to a boil, infuse the flavors, let it cool, and then chill it in the refrigerator until you're ready to brine. Now that our cider brine has cooled and we're ready to brine the turkey, we've got a bowl here with a tool that I find really helpful. It's a simple brining bag. It's a large plastic bag that you can pretty much find at any of your large grocers. And I find it really helpful to brine a turkey because it holds everything all together nice and neat. Now you absolutely can just use a bucket as long as it's food safe plastic. You can use any sort of non-reactive vessel that you like. You just have to make sure that you can completely submerge the meat that you're going to brine and that it also is below 40 degrees. Now, we're just going to open the brining bag, much like a large Ziploc bag. And it's best when brining a turkey to put it in so that the breast goes in first and on the bottom, because you really want to make sure that you're marinating and brining the breast meat. And while we're talking about brining, a lot of people are afraid to do it because they feel that it's going to make their food too salty. And really that's not the case at all. What happens is, and the turkey's going in, press down. Now the brining liquid and the cold gallon of water is going to go in on top of the bird, and we're going to completely submerge him in the brine liquid. Now what happens over the period of brining time is basically what's called osmosis. So the liquid that's on the outside of the bird is eventually going to break into the cell wall and the muscle tissue in the bird, and the liquid that's naturally inside the bird is going to flow in and out with the brine liquid as well. So at the end of the brining time, you basically have equilibrium, meaning that the liquid outside of the bird is the same as the liquid inside of the bird. So you're essentially marinating and tenderizing it, not over-salting it. And then once we're done, we're going to rinse off the excess salt from the outside anyways. So here we have the bird in the brining bag. Now we're going to first take our brining liquid, which again is 1 gallon of liquid. And you're going to leave everything in there. You're not going to strain your liquid. You're going to leave all of your beautiful spices and herbs and flavors and seasoning. And then next you're going to add 1 gallon of ice cold water. And now we've got our bird completely submerged. And what I've done is I've just double tied off the bag with regular cooking twine. And what this does is it just helps to keep the liquid up above the bird. Now, the brining time is approximately 1 hour per pound. And you really want to make sure to keep an eye on that, because if you over brine, you really can't take back that saltiness. So if it's the first time you're doing it, maybe you want to err on the underside of brining. Now we have our turkey that's already been brined, and it's been rinsed and patted dry. So we're ready to prep the turkey to roast. Now, the first component we're going to start with is called a compound butter, and it's basically a mix of 1/2 stick of butter and a blend of any chopped herbs that you like. I happen to use parsley, sage, and thyme, a little bit of salt and pepper, and some lemon zest. And then I like to add an additional 2 tablespoons of olive oil, because we're going to be rubbing the outside of the turkey with this, and we want to make sure that we have enough oil and butter to really cover the entire turkey. Now, before we do that, we're going to add some aromatics into the cavity of the turkey. Rather than putting stuffing in the bird, I like to add the aromatics. It helps to just flavor the turkey from the inside out. And what I've got here is some parsley, sage, and thyme, which is what I've also got in my compound butter. So I'm just going to take the fresh herbs and I'm going to give them a little bit of a twist to bruise them to just release the flavors. And I'm going to put them right into the cavity along with a cinnamon stick. And I've got a white sweet onion that's been quartered and an apple that's been quartered. Now basically, depending on the size of your bird, you may or may not be able to fit all of this in. And then I've got a lemon, and what I'm going to do with this lemon is I'm going to squeeze it right into the cavity of the bird, and then I'm also just going to continue to squeeze the rest of the lemon over the entire bird. Now we're ready to apply our compound butter. And basically, you're just going to take the butter in your hands. I find it's easier to wear gloves. And you're just going to hand baste the entire bird. And once you do that, you can actually then go underneath the skin of the breast. So right where the cavity is, you can find an area here where you can gently start to work your fingers in. And you want to take care not to tear the skin. And basically, you're just going to get as much of the compound butter underneath the skin and over the breast meat as possible. Because the breast meat is the meat that typically ends up drying out and finishes cooking first, actually. So we want to make sure that that is as flavorful and as moist as possible. The second component I like to use is called a basting glaze, and it's simply a mixture of maple syrup, vanilla, and either a little bit of cognac or brandy. And what it does is it adds a nice glaze on top of the bird for browning, and it mixes with the natural basting juices to give you a really nice flavor. And then when you're done roasting the turkey and you're going to use the pan drippings to make your gravy, you've got additional flavor that's been already enhanced. So what we're going to do is we're just basically going to take this glaze and you're going to brush it all over the bird. Now you want to baste the bird with this glaze and the pan juices throughout roasting. So depending on how often you baste your turkey or you turn it, you want to take care not to open the oven door too much, but when you do and you either check the temperature or you go to baste the turkey, then you want to reapply the glaze. Now we've applied our basting glaze and we're going to get the turkey ready to go into the oven. So the next step is just to tuck the wing tips underneath the back. And this will keep the wings intact and keep the tips from burning. And now we're just going to tie up the legs. So I'm going to use a piece of kitchen twine. And it's a good idea to tie up the legs. It's a nice presentation, and it also holds the bird intact, and it keeps the aromatics inside the bird. And then for the final step, we're going to take our quartered apples and just going to place them in the pan. And these are going to add to the aromatics in the pan juices. And then we're going to finish with a cup of apple cider. And just before the bird goes into the oven, we want to take a piece of foil and tent it over the top. And this is going to keep it from burning. So now our turkey is ready to go in the oven, preheated to 450 degrees. Now for the first hour, it's going to stay at 450 degrees. Then you're going to turn it down to 350. And then you're going to roast it and look for the temperature of 161 degrees. Now, you want to try not to open the oven door too much, but when you do, at intervals of maybe 40 to 45 minutes, you're going to reapply your basting glaze, and then you're going to check the temperature. And the best place to check the temperature is the breast and also behind the leg, in between the breast and the thigh. And as I mentioned, the breast is always going to cook first, so when you see that temperature starting to get towards 150 degrees, then keep an eye on it. And at that point, you probably want to take the foil off because it will be about 20 minutes to a half an hour away from being ready. And when you check the internal temperature of the leg and the thigh, and it's at 161 degrees, you can pull it out of the oven. Then you want to make sure to let it rest for at least 15 to 20 minutes because the temperature is going to rise a minimum of 5 degrees. So then your turkey will be at the appropriate temperature, and you want to let it rest so that it redistributes the juices nicely, and then it's ready to serve. And here we have our maple-glazed turkey. And on the platter we've got some baby roasted potatoes and the quartered braised apples that we put in the roasting pan along with the turkey. And then we've got some fresh herbs to tie in with the flavors that we roasted with in the beginning. All ready to enjoy.